can you explain to our audience in terms that even I can understand what exactly is RNA? What does it actually do? And why is it important to understand it?
Yeah. So first, I'd like to specify that RNA is not recent. It's something that's been around for thousands of millions of years. So it's present in all living organisms. And we do research on RNA. We've been doing research on RNA for decades because of that reason. It's really essential for the life on Earth, for example. And so to explain what RNA is, I'll start from DNA, which is a slightly different molecule. And we've often heard of DNA as being where our genetic information is stored. So we can see DNA as a giant instruction manual that's separated into different paragraphs, and those paragraphs are genes. Now, genes contain the information to make proteins. And you might have heard of proteins in the context of nutrition, but really proteins are like the building blocks of our cells. So if DNA is the instruction manual, the proteins are sort of the workers that make everything happen in our cells, from digesting nutrients to protecting us against microbes or viruses. And so DNA contains the information necessary to make proteins. But where it gets more complicated is that, as I mentioned, DNA is this huge instruction manual, and it's actually physically separated from the place where protein is made. So its DNA is in the part of the cell that we call the nucleus, and there's like a big gate around the nucleus, whereas proteins are made in another part of the cell. And so it's as if DNA was sort of stuck inside this area with the fence, and it's too big to get across to get information to proteins or to the place where proteins are made. And so it needs a message. And RNA, in this context, is the message. That's why we call it messenger RNA. So RNA is copies of just one paragraph of DNA at a time. So it's small enough, it can get across the fence and bring that same information that's contained in DNA to the place where proteins are made. So we say that one messenger RNA contains the information to make one protein. And so RNA is like a temporary copy of DNA. And I mentioned one reason why we might want a temporary copy, so that it can get across that big fence. But the other reason is that DNA is precious, and we don't want to damage it by sort of soliciting it too much. Whereas RNA is very temporary. It can be replaced easily. And so we use it in this context as the message between DNA and protein.
You mentioned RNA is part of, basically it's been existing since forever, and it's part of every human, not only human, but every living being, every living organism. So what does it do in our systems, basically, that RNA versus the DNA? Because the DNA is more like central, it's stable, and the RNA is more temporary.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, the RNA is like the message. So like another analogy would be, for example, like if you want to, let's say, build a house, you could say that the house is like the protein, and you might have, many different plans for a house that you could choose from. But you might, as an architect, you might not want to bring that huge book of different options for houses to, where you're building the house. You'll choose just one. And so the RNA could be just that one plan that you choose. And so going back to the idea that DNA needs to be protected, part of that is because we have DNA present in only two copies in each cell. So generally, one copy comes from one parent and the other from the other parent. your DNA has to last a really long time, so we don't want to damage it. By contrast, mRNA is much more dynamic. And so you could have, like, let's say the RNA copy from one gene be present in only one copy, and another one, if it's needed a lot, will be present in thousands of copies. And this changes through time and as a function of, let's say, environmental conditions. So if it's really hot outside, you might make more of one RNA that helps you to deal with that heat. Similarly, from all the possible genes that are present in the big instruction manual that is the DNA, not all of them are needed in every organ, for example. So there's only some of those genes that will be copied into mRNA in the brain, whereas there's another set of genes that will be copied into mRNA in the liver. So RNA, not only is it the message that allows to transmit the information from the instruction manual to the workers, so DNA to protein, but it also allows our system to be really flexible in terms of which messages it wants to transmit.
That's why you say basically RNA is more temporary, because you mentioned RNA can be a signal that is sent if it's warm. So our system needs to react to this to cool us off. But you don't want that message to stick around, because eventually if it's not warm anymore, you don't want your system to keep on doing those functions. It needs other functions. So that's why RNA is basically more not time and context specific. Is that, if I may?
Yeah, exactly.